Congratulations! You own your own business or professional corporation. You'll want to hear how to set up your very own pension plan. Then, is it better to buy new or used? Learn how to save tax when getting a new vehicle. And which is better, a Robo advisor or a human advisor? Discover the differences. All this and more today on The Wealthy Life. Is it better to buy a new or a used vehicle?
I think a new car is more reliable, but you're losing money on it. So a used car is probably more financially intelligent.
Having had both, used.
If you're going to have a vehicle for 10 years, then sometimes it is better to buy something new. It doesn't have to be top of the line, but to have, a 4 to 10-year warranty is fantastic.
I buy used vehicles, single owner, fairly new, and the depreciation is off if they're good quality vehicles, and I think that makes more sense from a cash flow perspective.
Are you one of the more than 1 million Canadians that owns their own business? Today's guest is Trevor Parry, an estate planning advisor with some tax and retirement tips. Welcome to the show, Trevor.
Thanks for having me.
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm a non-practicing lawyer, schooled in tax, collected degrees for far too long, and for a while was a financial advisor. I'm now what I self-style as a tax mercenary, so I travel across the country working with financial advisors, helping bring some prudent tax planning to defense of their clients' interests.
Well, everyone loves to save a little bit of tax. Are you a little bit more liked now than you were as a lawyer?
I think so, yeah. There's a tangible benefit when you're doing tax planning. No one really wants to see a lawyer, very rarely. So.
Unless you need one.
Exactly.
What are some of the common tax tips that Canadians need to know about or overlook?
Most of what I do deals with business owners, professional corps, so we're largely looking at corporate tax planning as a means of preserving or enhancing deferral, creating some prudent deductions where possible. On the personal tax side, I'm doing a lot of work with what we'll call strategic philanthropy. It's really the only way if you want to remove the government as your primary creditor. Charity is really the only way to go, so we're seeing a very exuberant market in that.
Good, and when it comes to the business owners, what would you say is the most commonly used tax strategy to save taxes?
Most of them have no tax strategy. They simply pay and they lament when it's time to do it. They're spending their days worrying about their enterprise, and often they don't have the time to sit down and try to figure out how can I save this or that. You'll see some interesting things out there, but largely in what I'm doing, it's largely around use of pensions or executive compensation, or we might use various insurance products to defer and in certain cases reduce taxes measurably.
Because a lot of business owners get so caught up in running their business, they forget to take that time out to plan.
Oh, I mean, they went to school or they just started an enterprise to, they put capital at risk every day and hopefully derive a reasonable profit. How many people go off and study tax? It takes a weird breed like myself. I mean, we enjoy it because it's chess with the government, but it's not everyone's bailiwick.
What are some of the things that business owners should do to protect their business in the event of death or disability?
I think insurance is pretty clear as the solution here. We talk about reserving funds inside of a company, but the new passive income rules make that very difficult to do. No one likes to talk about insurance because the negative connotation, of course, is dying. But if you look at it simply as a means of funding a liquidity event at a discounted rate, that's all it is. And then there's other attributes with the ability to save and defer tax on the growth of a policy. But largely, we're simply talking about, we know that there's a quantifiable tax liability at the end of the day. Let's try to minimize it, but when that inevitably happens, the money's there, so the family's not running around trying to borrow to cover off tax liabilities.
And speaking of that, the family, if you pass away, what are some of the things that a business owner should do to make sure the family's not fighting over the business? Should there be a buy-sell agreement in place?
Absolutely, and I know, unfortunately, the estate litigation bar backed the truck up when they get an acrimonious estate situation. So planning is critical. Shareholder agreement is probably the most important agreement, the most important document that happens. There are a lot of people think wills are. Wills are, if you do your estate structuring correctly, wills are, you know, they're secondary at best. And it's important to have a business will and all that, but it's really looking at the guts of the shareholder agreement to see what happens to the shares upon the death of that shareholder. Because if you don't plan, I mean, if I'm looking at Ontario rates, you can walk into a 73% tax rate. It's egregious. Yeah.
So people need to pay attention to this.
Exactly.
How about for retirement planning? What should business owners be doing there?
Retirement planning, save inside the corporation. The deferral is still largely intact, although we do have some new punitive rules on passive income. But I think individual pension plans and in certain situations retirement compensations arrangements make a lot of sense. And my past incarnation, I've set up well over 2,000 IPPs, and I'm seeing it come back strong on the radar screens of accountants across the country.
We're going to talk about that. What do you think is the biggest question that small business owners need to ask?
How can I meaningfully and prudently save some money from the government so I can have it for whatever purposes down the road? And the planning will ensue from that.
And we're going to pick up on the IPP topic as well. So don't go away. Find out if an IPP makes more financial sense than an RSP when we return.
The Wealthy Life is brought to you by investment dealer Raymond James. Life well planned. See what a Raymond James advisor can do for you.
Welcome back. We're here with Trevor Parry to learn when an IPP is better than an RRSP for small business owners. Trevor, I would like to know really what is an IPP?
It's an excellent question because there's not that many of them. There's about 12,000 of them in the country. There should be many, many more, and in this tax environment of high punitive taxes, I think we're going to start to see a lot more of them. But what it is, very simple, is it's a formal pension plan for a business owner.
So IPP stands for Individual Pension Plan.
You got it. They've been around since 1991, but they generally follow a defined benefit pension model. So for all those folks who have friends or acquaintances who are retired civil servants, retired teachers, this is basically the teacher's pension plan for an entrepreneur.
Oh, that sounds great. So who's eligible to start one of these?
You need to have your own corporation, so we can't do it from partnership. So you need a corporation, and you need to have been taking T4 income to qualify the income, the pension contribution, and that's it.
Okay, and that's where maybe some business owners get caught up because sometimes they want to take dividends instead of income.
And that goes to this issue called integration as to what should they be doing. And the Canadian income tax system is based on the concept that you should be no further ahead based on what you take. And as you know, time after time, it's never that way. So sometimes people take dividends, sometimes people take income. And even in this high tax environment, government's pushing levers to force you to take T4, to take income. So the IPP really is the large-scale deduction that's available to business owners that they may not have considered in the past.
And does your business have to be a certain size?
Not really. It's always good if you're earning well. It's largely age geared. So the older you are, the larger the contribution, the larger the deduction, because you can do something called past service funding. But we've run numbers for folks who are, for instance, farmers who took $60,000 a year for the last 20, 25 years. We're still able to create $200,000, $300,000 tax deductions for them in the first year. So,
wow.
Oh, yeah.
So this is it better than an RSP from that perspective?
I would argue that it is. It certainly creates upfront tax relief to the corporation, but it also creates certainty. And tax is important, and I certainly live to fight tax every day. But at the end of the day, we want to do prudent planning for somebody. And why is it that civil servants enjoy their pensions? It's predictability. They know what they're going to get every month. Mm-hmm. We can go out and do that for an entrepreneur right now with this structure.
How is the numbers calculated in terms of contribution limits and what the pension's going to be at the end of the day? Who does that math?
That's secrets of the temple stuff. So we have to retain an actuary to do it, and they will come up with a defined benefit calculation, but it's based on the same income levels that an RSP is maxing out at. And then we're able to go back and calculate basically what's the difference between what they could have put into one of these structures over and above an RSP for all their years of earned income. That's called past service. That's a deduction, and it's not unusual to see somewhere between $150,000 on the low end, and for a 65-year-old, maybe $800,000 of deduction. Wow.
Can you invest the money equally as if it's in an RSP versus an IPP?
Well, the RSP actually moves over to become part of the IPP, and you manage the money no differently than when you were managing your RSP. It can be self-directed, or you can work with your advisor to put prudent investments in place.
Well, this sounds great. For those of you who are interested and want to know if an IPP makes sense for you, contact us at thewealthylife.com and we'll point you in the right direction. Trevor, thank you for being on the show today.
It's been delightful. Thank you.
Stay tuned. Up next, we'll learn how to get the best deal when buying or selling a vehicle.
The Wealthy Life is brought to you by investment dealer Raymond James. Life well planned. See what a Raymond James advisor can do for you.
Buying a new vehicle can be exciting, but a bit overwhelming all at the same time. With us now is Brad Osterman, General Manager at an auto group, to share some tips on buying and selling vehicles. Brad, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sybil. It's my pleasure.
Tell me how you got into the car business.
I've been in the car business about 2 decades now. I've been very fortunate to have an incredible career in the automotive industry, and I fell into it ultimately. I think you're either born into the car business or you stumble into the car business, and I did the latter. I had just finished university, didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew I had to pay off some student loan debts.
Oh, the student loan debts.
Absolutely. So, and I happened to take the train by a local Nissan dealership in Calgary where I was, and I just went in there one day and asked for a job, and they hired me on the spot, and 20 years later, here I am.
And what was your first job in the industry?
Originally hired as a salesperson.
And did you own a car at the time?
I was actually taking the train. No, I didn't.
And I bet you bought a car shortly after?
Well, I had a demonstrator, so my first new vehicle wasn't my new vehicle. It was a demo vehicle at a Nissan dealership. So
and what did that feel like?
It was amazing. Very, very exciting, and that is one of the greatest things about my industry, is that it is very, very exciting and always changing. At that point, there was a real formative change in the industry. People were starting to figure out this crazy new thing called the internet and how it might impact vehicle sales.
Buy direct.
Exactly. And so I was young, fairly tech savvy at the time, and so there was a real opportunity for young people in the industry at that time.
So how do you think the industry has changed over the years? I mean, when a lot of people think about buying a car in the old days, it used to be, oh gosh, they got to go see the car sales guy.
Yeah, and that was essentially it. There was a bit of a negative connotation because the car dealership held all the information. Mm-hmm. The only information you could access was through them. They were the conduit to any information at all, and so you had to go get a brochure, you had to trust someone.
Right.
And the internet has changed all of that. Now, really, the information lies with the consumer as much as with the seller.
Right.
And it's made a much more efficient process, certainly a more customer-friendly process. It's forced automotive retailers to embrace the fact that cards are on the table.
Right, so they're not trying to hide things, it's full disclosure. People know what they're getting into.
Of course.
And the relationship is a lot different. Where do you see the salesperson now at a dealership spending their time and energy in working with the client? What types of questions are they asking?
Yeah, I think historically it was more educating around the vehicle and the features and options that were available. Whereas now all that information is available in advance, and so a lot of it is just creating a relationship, making sure that the vehicle or the selection matches the lifestyle, making sure that the decision that the customer is making on their own is the appropriate decision for their lifestyle.
You mean people might get distracted and see something shiny and fast, meanwhile they've got 3 kids and a dog that won't fit?
Exactly. And I think that because it is, let's face it, a depreciating asset, the best way to purchase a vehicle is to make sure that it's going to last as long as you want it to last and function in the way that you need it to function for your family.
Perfect. Well, I know I've got a teenage boy and he thinks I should have a smaller, sportier, faster car until it's time to put all his lacrosse gear in the back, and woo, I need something bigger.
Let me give you my card.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So what are the questions that people should be asking before they make a purchase?
Yeah, I think really you have to make sure that you're buying an appropriate vehicle for your lifestyle and the time in your life. So you want to ask yourself, what's my budget? what do I need the vehicle to do? How long do I want to keep it? And if you kind of go at it from that angle and you make decisions based on those main key criteria, chances are you're going to make an informed, intelligent decision and you'll not regret your purchase.
And it'll make it a funner experience because you've put thought into what you really need it for and how to stretch your dollar, which of course everyone wants to know how to stretch your dollar. Should they buy new or used? Which is better? Which gives you the better bang for buck?
It's a really, really difficult question to answer because, again, it really depends on the individual and the circumstance. A lot of people want a new vehicle because of the peace of mind of a warranty. Other people are more concerned about depreciation values, overall cost of ownership, and then there's an argument perhaps for a pre-owned vehicle at that point. But at the end of the day, there are great options either way. Interest rates typically are lower on new vehicles. So if you are financing, a lot of the savings that you would receive in purchasing a pre-owned vehicle, you can actually find in interest savings on a new vehicle.
Now that is something that most people maybe don't factor in. I like the way you say pre-owned instead of used. That is so much nicer.
Right, that's sort of ingrained, I think. Yeah.
Well, I know when I was going to purchase my vehicle, I thought, wouldn't it be great? I'll buy a vehicle that's 2 or 3 years old, still has a bit of warranty on it, but all the depreciation or the bulk of it when you drive a new car off the lot will be gone. Well, guess what? I went looking around, and to buy a pre-owned vehicle, it was only going to be a few $1,000s less than a brand new vehicle. It held its resale value. So I ended up buying brand new, and it was great. And of course, you get a lot of 0% or very low financing deals.
Yeah, and I think that you hit on a very important aspect of the purchase in that it was unique to you. You had a specific vehicle you're interested in. You found the best scenario for you. A lot of vehicles, you wouldn't have the luxury of having a very small depreciation after a few years. It might be considerable, and then that obviously might have changed your decision depending on what you were looking at.
It absolutely would have. What about when it comes to financing? Are people better off to lease or to borrow finance or to pay cash? What do you see customers asking you?
Absolutely, and I think, again, that's such an individual choice based on circumstance. I think that the manufacturers are very invested in providing really easy finance terms. So if you need to make a monthly payment, meaning you don't have X amount of money in a coffee can in your kitchen, then
that would not be a good place to keep money.
Right, exactly. You would know better than anyone. And so in that circumstance, obviously, financing the vehicle at a lower interest rate is going to save your money. If you can afford to put a portion down, that makes sense. A lot of people, because of tax write-offs, if they're using the vehicle for business purposes, leasing makes a lot of sense.
Because it levels out the deductible year over year.
That's right. Your depreciation value is your monthly payment, so it's very easy to calculate and very easy to manage.
What's one of the big advantages of, instead of selling my vehicle privately, trading it in at a dealership?
Sure. Again, in that, I always say that you really have to chase the value, you chase the money in a transaction like that. And so some vehicles, depending on their value, you get a tax savings. You actually only pay the tax on the difference between the vehicle you're purchasing and the vehicle you're trading in.
Okay, so that can be sizable depending on the value of your vehicle.
Absolutely. If you're dealing with an expensive vehicle, 12% of a large number is a considerable savings.
Brad, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for all your advice today. And if you want to hear more tips when buying and selling a vehicle, contact us at thewealthylife.com. Brad, great chatting with you today. Hope to see you again soon.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
When we return, discover the pros and cons of Robo advice. Welcome back. Thanks for your letters, emails, tweets, and messages. Today's question is from Chuck in Regina. Dear Sybil, I'm intrigued by the ads I've seen for Robo advice, but don't quite understand how they work. The fees appear to be very low. Is that accurate? I am a young single father of 2 kids with $30,000 of investments so far, plus I save $250 per month and am expecting a large inheritance next year. Do you think I could be well served by this service? Many thanks, Chuck. Chuck, well, congratulations on being such a great saver already, especially being a single parent. I know that can't be easy. When it comes to robo advice, the thing to note is that it is just a technology. It's a service, it's a platform. The advice you get is as good as the information you provide it. So I always like to say, garbage in, garbage out. Now that being said, the technology allows for some really great things which keep costs down for you, the investor, but also help build a basic plan of investments that may or may not meet your needs over the long run. So as you get started, I think robo technology is a great addition, but as your situation gets more complicated, I think you're going to find that some human advice is needed as well. So some of the things to think about. Are you going to contribute to your RSP or your tax-free savings account? Which one is better? Do you want to save for your kids' education? Do you want to send them to university and college one day? If so, how do you save and how much do you need to save? Are you able to ride through markets? If the markets go down, will you be the type of person that will invest more while it's low, or will you panic and sell out? Those are the types of things that technology currently lacks in its current form. That's where a human advisor will likely step up and better service you. If you're good with those things and just need a place to get started, then the robo technology is actually quite helpful and easy. One final thing. Rather than asking just about the fees, you really want to understand what is the total value you're getting for the fees you're paying, and what is the after fee return. And that wraps up this edition of The Wealthy Life, helping Canadians make smart financial decisions. Go to thewealthylife.com to be a member and receive free exclusive access to Wealthy Life workbooks, calculators, articles, and more to help you make the most out of what you have.